Hey, everybody. Hey, everyone. My name is Greg Bogus. I run a thing called Hi Labs. It's a thing. It's basically a blog. I've been experimenting with AI for about the last year and a half. I'm the last speaker before Hack Night here, and I've had the privilege and opportunity to spend a lot of time hacking with AI for the last year and a half, and I wanted to share just some tools and some ideas for how you can sort of get the most out of your own hacking. Just as a show of hands, who here is staying for the Hack Night tonight? Awesome. And just as a show of hands, who here, I know we've done this a little bit before, who here has an AI or an LLM-based app in production today? Amazing. So a few, like not a ton. Who has worked with, say, the OpenAI APIs or the Anthropic APIs? So again, if you look around, maybe like half the room, which means that the other half maybe haven't, right? But you're still here today because you want to learn, you want to know how to get started, and a lot of this stuff is really complicated, or it seems complicated, it seems intimidating, and my hope is over the next 20, 25 minutes, we can talk about some strategies, how you can dip your toes in and get started, and if you are already getting started, I want to talk about some building blocks that you could use so that you can speed up your hacking, so that you can start building some hacks that will turn into production apps that will ultimately help you do your job better, or help you save money, or help you be more efficient, and really like take advantage of these new capabilities that these new tools have unlocked. Coding was back, in the mid 80s. And I felt like over the course of my career, coding got so much more complicated, and the barriers to getting into this stuff got so much more complex, and it felt like the juice wasn't necessarily worth the squeeze as much for beginners. Then I started playing with the LLM APIs, and it was the most fun that I had been having coding basically since I was a kid. It was the first time when I felt like I could just write a few lines and get just unlimited opportunity coming out on the other side. So then the question was, how do we use this stuff, right? There's obviously so much hype around AI, and I generally feel like there's two the way I phrase it is, the folks who feel like AI is just the next crypto phase, that it's all hype, they haven't used the tools. Also, the folks who feel like AI is going to take all of the jobs and take over the world, they also haven't used the tools, right? Like, these new tools give us new capabilities, but they are not all powerful, nor are they completely useless. And like Carter said, I just recently moved about a month ago. We're about 20 miles up the Hudson in Rockland County. I've lived in Brooklyn for 8 years prior. I love New York. We have 2 kids. It was time for us to move to the suburbs for all the reasons that people do that. I've lived in urban apartments for my entire adult life. We did 11 years in Chicago before, and then we've been here in Brooklyn for 8. We now live in a house. And for the first time in my life, I have power tools. And man, these things are so powerful. But I was like, what do I do with them? Like, I have a circular saw and a jigsaw, and then I have an oscillating saw, and it's like, well, they all just cut wood, right? And they're also like so much more powerful than the handsaw, but it's not like the circular saw is just going to like build the house for me or build the thing for me, right? And so a lot of the first few months of like setting up a workshop and stuff was figuring out, how do I use these tools to do jobs around my house? And what I did was I built a workbench, right? And that was like, I watched YouTube and I learned how these different tools work. I learned how to like keep myself safe and not like cut my fingers off. And I just started building small stuff. And from there, I started by having like this little toy project of a workbench. I started learning how to do other things around the house that were helpful for keeping the house standing and not growing mold in the basement and stuff like that. And this is sort of the approach that I think a lot of us need to take on as we start playing with AI and hacking with AI. And it's part of the reason why these hack nights are amazing, because they give us small little projects that are low stakes that we can spend time box, just a little bit of time to work on something to see like, how do we build, like what can I build with this? And as you work on those personal projects, you will find some applications that are productive. But you often have to build the toys first and learn what the toys are and build the small, low stakes projects before you start getting into the things that are going to save you time or get the promotion at work or allow you to start a business. So what I'd like to do over the next few minutes is show you all a few of my favorite AI tools that I've discovered over the last 18 months or so that I've been working with. And the first one is Cursor. Just a show of hands, who here is using Cursor today or has used Cursor? All right, just a few. This is so exciting. If nothing but this, I'm super stoked to introduce this to you all. My very good friend Ricky Robinette, also a former colleague at Twilio. He now runs developer relations at Cloudflare. He has an 8-year-old daughter. Her name is Faye, and they were recently doing some traveling. She was in the hotel room. He was showing her some Cursor, and she actually might have. Yes.
Hello. And then if I do that, then it will basically have some code, and it will apply it. Now I'm going to do Command Tab and Command R. And now, look, now it says Harry Potter.
All right, so the full video here is 9 minutes. You can find it on Ricky Robinette's Twitter. He tweeted this last week. It has been viewed 2.5 million times. And his 8-year-old daughter builds, Faye, she builds a Harry Potter chatbot using Cursor. I can tell you she is not a professional developer. And yet she's able to not only build this chatbot, but she's able to center CSS on the page, which is an incredible feat for anyone, let alone an 8-year-old. And she's able to do this all with Cursor. So Cursor looks like this. Anyone here use VS Code? A few. All right, awesome. So look, as y'all have seen, internet has been spotty, so that might determine whether or not we do this live or we just walk through pre-written code. And I just pulled up fast.com and that's even spinning. So I think we're just going to walk through some pre-written code here. But the general idea here with Cursor, who has used ChatGPT or Claude to write code? Like you've gone there and you've written code, right? Okay, cool. So that's how I sort of started too. You go there, you write some code, you copy it into your editor. The thing that Cursor does, and I think this is really fascinating when you start thinking about building your own AI-powered tools, is they first and foremost, they bring the chat right here into where you already work. So if you're thinking about how do I build tools that will help my users that are better than, why would they use my tool as opposed to just saying going to ChatGPT or Claude, Cursor has been probably the most impactful tool on my personal development pace in 30 years. And the main reason for that is they have brought the interface closer to where I already code. And then this means that they're also able to use my code base as context. They're basically doing RAG here inside of Cursor. So that when I'm asking questions, it's not just giving me theoretical answers, it's actually using my code base as context for those answers. So we'll just see here, I don't know if it's going to work given the internet or not, but we're going to say write the game of life, use the console for the output. We'll roll the dice, we'll see if this goes. There's a couple different ways you can use Cursor. You can use the chat over here on the right-hand side. You can choose which LLM you want, or you can just run the code directly right here in your editor. And you can basically select big blocks of code. You can tell it what you want it to change, and then you can tell it, then it will actually make the changes. You're not copying and pasting and trying to manually do the diff yourself. So this is live. We'll see if it goes. I don't know. We're going to save this as Game of Life, and we will run this. We'll make this big, and PY. It looks like that I did not save that to the right place, so let's make sure I save that as. My apologies. Yes, all right, here we go. Greg, and we will save that to the code folder, and that goes to DataStax right there, and now we'll do Python, Game of Life, there we go, and there we go. That is fully functioning Game of Life. That's what's called like one-shotting, right? So that we asked it to do the thing, it did the thing, and it worked the first time, right? And I don't know if anyone's ever tried to write this implementation. If I were, again, I've been coding most of my life. If I were trying to write this by hand, this is hours of work for me, right? Now it ran on the first try. It did not get any errors. Let's just see if I don't know, man. Like we'll see here. Let's try this. Let's just introduce an error and save it. I truly don't know. Like, okay, so we got an error here. What this will do here is we get the error, and then we can just take this error and we can take this over here and we can drop this into the chat and say, I got this error. And sometimes, depending on how you do it, a little button will pop up to automatically import it over. And it's actually really good at identifying the errors and then coming back over here and then fixing it. So it has just found, this is obviously a pretty trivial error, but we are going to copy this. So it says simply correct the spelling on next generation. So we might even be able to say this, fix this error, and we'll just do it directly into here, and we'll submit the edit, and it will probably go through there and fix that. And so this is really powerful. And I want to talk just a minute about why is this so powerful? Because again, there's so much hype about LLMs. What is it about this use case and this workflow here that is so powerful when so much of LLMs are not fitting the hype that's set up with them? And I would suggest that it's a couple things. So one, the issue here is I think this workflow is really beautiful, right? And so one, there's a human in the loop, right? I am writing code. It did work right the first time, but I am asking it what to do. I am checking its input, and then I'm running it. Two, and I will say just generally speaking, most of the fully automated AI use cases that I've seen just are underperforming, right? Like they're just, again, that's the spot where they're not that good. But the places where I've really seen some amazing outcomes is with humans in the loop where you're using the AI to augment a human's work as opposed to automate a human's work. And Cursor is a good example of a human in the loop. Two, a big problem with LLMs is hallucinations. But what we have in code is we have a veracity check, and that's when you run your code. And let's just see if it fixed that. It did not. All right, so whatever. You guys get the idea. So you run your code, and then the code runs or it doesn't. And if it doesn't run, you get an error. And then you can take the error, you can push it back into the chat, and it will fix the error, right? And so I think that combination of a human in the loop plus the veracity check plus bringing the AI to where the user already lives and works and you can work with their data is a super powerful combination that you could probably take those ideas and start looking for other places where people are working with tools and you can bring those technologies and that type of workflow into there. Carter, I will just say, oh good, my timer's right there, fantastic. All right, I was rambling a bit there, I just want to make sure that I'm not going over here. So, all right, so very good, so that's Cursor. Second, LLM APIs. Some of y'all didn't, about half or so had not played with the LLM APIs, and I know it can be a little intimidating, and I just wanted to show y'all real quick what it looks like to hello world with one of the LLM APIs. OpenAI's chat completion endpoint is probably the most popular. In the last few months, Anthropic's Claude has sort of surpassed it in popularity, perhaps. Like I'd say it may be like neck and neck a little bit, and it's a bit of a horse race. There's also open source options. So Llama is a very popular option. Cloudflare has some hosted open source LLMs. I'm going to just show off OpenAI's endpoint here, just for the sake of it's kind of how I got started, and it's probably the most popular here. So this is what the hello world looks like. Let's just see. I don't know. We'll see if this works or not. We'll ask Cursor. Oh, one cool thing you can do with Cursor is you can add docs to it. So when we're talking about RAG here, you can actually come in here and you can ask it to do stuff, and it has access to Claude or to GPT-4o or whatever LLM you want. But you can also add context in RAG. You can add docs. So you can actually come in, and what I've done is had it scrape the docs for several different services that I'm using, right? And so I've done this with OpenAI. You can see I indexed it last night, so it has the up-to-date OpenAI docs in context here. So I wanted to say, write a hello world with, and I'm going to tag OpenAI's chat completion endpoint. Chat completion endpoint. I've already gone to OpenAI, and I have saved my my API key as an environment variable here, so it should be able to import that. And then I'm going to save this. We'll call this chat. We'll call it chat live because I already have a chat.py just in case this doesn't work. And then we're going to run that chat live.py, and it is going to, let's see here. So it passed, all right, cool. So it passed in this user message of say hello world, right? And then this came back and said, hello world, how can I assist you today? Let's make it just a little bit more interactive. We're going to say, make this interactive, take user input from the command line, and use a while loop to repeat the chat, to repeat the, let's say, interactions. I think it would probably know what I'm talking about, but we'll see how that goes. All right, and so it's going to make the edits. I'm going to click accept here, and you see now we have a while loop. We're going to get input from the user. The default here is 3.5 turbo. If y'all are unfamiliar, 3.5 turbo is like the old, you probably shouldn't be using that anymore. 4.0 mini is cheap, fast, and really good, especially compared to what we had 18 months ago. So we'll run this again. And now, does anyone have a question? What can we ask ChatGPT? What was that? When will you take over the world? Very good. When will you take over the world? All right, very good. I don't have any intentions or capabilities to take over the world. All right, so we're all safe, so that's good. My purpose is to assist and provide information to users like you. All right, so this is Hello World, right? This is how you get started with this. And in, what is this, 26 lines of code. If we simplify this down, it's probably a dozen lines of code that we didn't even write. We now have the entire power of ChatGPT on the command line. And one of the first things that I ever did was once I got this Hello World up and running, I have a 9-year-old daughter as well, and she wants to be an author illustrator when she grows up. And so she's been writing a lot of different books. And she came down, and we basically came in here and we changed the, I guess it's actually not in here, but you can provide what's called a system message, which is basically the overarching instructions for the personality that you want the chatbot to take on. And for the system message, we basically told it, pretend that you're the character, the main character of the book that my daughter was writing. And so then, she gave it a few sentences of description, and then she started chatting with this character that she had invented. And all we did is we changed one line of this Hello World code, and this went from this friendly assistant to now, like, my 9-year-old daughter is spending time typing in a terminal, right, and chatting with a character of her invention. And so when I say that, like, the last 18 months I've been playing with this stuff, this is the most fun that I have had coding since I was a kid, right? And it's because these tools are so incredibly powerful with such little code. So if you haven't played with this today, so far I would just say, or if you haven't played with this stuff yet, so far I would just say, please install Cursor. Please try to Hello World with one of these LLM APIs and just build something and see where it goes from there. All right, let me tell you a little bit of a RAG story. We've been talking about this, so I'm not going to go super deep here. This is a little bit more of a personal story about RAG. So my father is a United Methodist pastor. He's actually retired. I am I guess you could say, a developer evangelist. I like to joke that I'm a second-generation evangelist. My dad used to prepare basically a 30-minute talk every Sunday, right? And he did this for decades, and this is what his Google Docs folder looks like. So this is his list of 2009 sermons, and so every single week he's preparing a new sermon. He has one of these folders for every year. He was a pastor for like 40 years. He retired. He got kind of bored. He was trying to and it was just, he felt disconnected from folks. And I was just starting to learn on this stuff. And, you could go to ChatGPT and you could say, like, hey, write me a sermon, but it wouldn't be in his voice, right? And it wouldn't be using like his illustrations and whatnot. I worked, like I said, as developer evangelist at Twilio for a long time. We wrote a lot of content. About 10 years ago, Carter, I don't know if you were on the team at the time, we all read this book called, what was it called? Welcome to the Funnel by Jason Miller. And he talked about this concept called turkey carving, right? And the idea behind turkey carving is Thanksgiving dinner comes, you spend all of this effort, you spend hours and hours and hours cooking a meal, you make the turkey, you make all the stuff, and then man, isn't it a shame if you just eat only one meal after all that prep and then you don't ever touch the leftovers? But the best part of Thanksgiving is often you've done all the prep and then you have leftovers. And for the next few days, you're making turkey sandwiches and you're making soups out of the whatever, And so the idea is you spend all this time writing content, for those of you who are working in marketing functions or whatever. And then so often, the cost of repurposing that content is so high that we never actually get around to repurposing it. But these new tools have actually made it relatively easy to repurpose content. So the very first thing I did with my first RAG app is I imported all my dad's sermons, and then we built this thing where he could basically write newsletters, and he could just send it a topic, it would create something for him, and then he could send it out to folks who were on his newsletter. This is in contrast. Obviously, as soon as these APIs came out, these tools came out, there's a big concern about what's now called slop, which is basically bad AI-generated content, right? This guy is Simon Willison. Highly recommend following him he's one of the creators of Django, I think. And he's just an incredible journalist documenting a lot of this stuff. And he defines the internet, he didn't come up with this definition, but he's kind of like spread it. Slop is AI-generated content that is both unrequested and unreviewed. So it's like low quality, low value content that like nobody asked for. And that's different than what we're talking about when we're using RAG to generate and to repurpose content that you've already created. Right, so obviously if you were to come into ChatGPT, just ask it to write a blog post about RAG, it would have that tone of voice that we're all become familiar with, whatnot. Instead, let's go over this. Instead, what you could do, and you've seen a lot of products pop up around this, is you can take the content you already have and you can use these tools to repurpose it into blog posts, into tweets, into whatever. Now, the question is, if these tools already exist, why would you as a developer want to do it? It's because the programmer's credo. We do these things not because they're easy, because we thought they were going to be easy, right? And so, again, a lot of these tools that we're talking about, we'll see if I have 2 minutes left, so I'll show you a couple of the things that we built here. It's so easy to get started. I will say oftentimes, if there's a big problem with all this AI stuff, is the demos are amazing. Getting it to production can be hard. So as you're trying to evaluate, should you buy the tool, I would say play with it first, build your demos first, and then once you've built the demos, maybe consider going out and just like paying the $100 a month to a vendor who's actually thought through all the production stuff, right? But it's really, really valuable for you to get in there, build some demos yourself, build some toys yourself to figure out the concepts behind how these things work. I know we have this is the last tool here, speech to text. It's a little bit different than what we've been talking about. And I know we have a lot of financial services folks here, and a lot of the financial services, the banks and whatnot, you have call centers where you're having you're getting a lot of data coming in from customers, or maybe there's things like earnings calls and you want to generate content based off earnings calls. There's several APIs out there for speech to text. Assembly AI is one of my favorites. OpenAI also makes one called Whisper. And just to show a quick example here before we wrap up, a few hours ago, we had this panel standing right up here on stage, right? And I was in the back with this little voice recorder right here, right? And so I just recorded that. And let's see if I have it here. Yeah, we got it right here.
To be able to have that hyper-personalization is an area that we're seeing, and also, as I mentioned, in the contact center. We're starting to see now, how do I make what I have more?
All right, so you can tell the recording's not great, right? There's a lot of background noise. It's just this, relatively cheap recorder hanging out in the back of the room. I wasn't plugged right into the soundboard or anything. But I did take that WAV file and I uploaded it to Assembly AI. And I did this via API actually. So I had this script, and just in the interest of time, I will just show you what we've already written here. But again, I had Cursor write this script, and I imported Assembly AI's docs into here, and I uploaded this panel.wav, and it gave me back a transcript. And that transcript looks like this, right? And so, and that's about what we all see as well. We're implementing 10A, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the full transcript from that panel from just a couple hours ago. And then I took that and you all saw David's talk, you saw Carter's talk, talking about breaking your data up into chunks and then putting it into a vector store. I put that here. I just very kind of crudely broke that up into chunks. And then I imported those chunks into Astra. So this is my Astra vector database right here. And you can see these chunks from that panel discussion right here in my database. And then I have a short little script right here that you can see will perform it's basically just expanding out that hello world from OpenAI that we talked about. And it will, before it does the OpenAI dance, it will take the query from the user and it will go look up and extract a relevant content from the vector database and then pass that content along with the query to OpenAI so that OpenAI then, you can see basically the prompt that I'm using is write a 500-word blog post based on the question of user input, use only the following quote, do not add any of your own thoughts, include portions of the quote in your response where appropriate. And those results are coming here from this RAG search, which is coming from Astra. So I'll run this. I'll be honest, the first shot here, like didn't spend a ton of time on it. It's not like crazy impressive results, but it works. And it's pretty crazy that it works and that you can have AI generating custom content based effectively in real time, right? Like you can effectively, from an event that just happened, you can do this. So we'll do this here. We'll call write.py. I want to say, tell me about hyper personalization. We'll see if that goes. And I believe if this works, the internet's playing nice and all my stuff's working, this is going to go retrieve the relevant snippet. It is going to then show me the relevant snippet. Yep, so here's the prompt that we're looking at. So you can see we're doing 30 seconds on NeMo. So yes, I worked at NVIDIA 10 years, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the quote from there, and then it's going to give me here a blog post on hyper-personalization, and it's going to include some quotes from this. So there's a lot of prompt engineering you could do to make this better, but hopefully, this is candidly, like I wrote all this code in the last hour or so, so as you're trying to think about what are the sorts of things that you can do at a hack night, or even if you're not staying for the hack night, just in like the hour or two after the kids go down and before you go to bed, there is so much fun stuff you can build right now. I honestly believe it's like the best time in history to be a developer with a little bit of free time and a little bit of curiosity. So I'll be around if anyone has any questions. Thank you all so much, and thank you.
Woo! Give it up.